Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our first edition of Carnivore Radio, Internet edition. Yes, this is quite an event. We finally do our first live podcast, and we have Tom Avatabili, author of several books and overall well-informed person, along with my co-host, Dr. Eric Lopkin. I'm going to have to throw it to Dr. Lopkin first. Dr. Lopkin, these are not ordinary times, are they?
No, they're not. Everything has been overwhelmed by the coronavirus. Businesses are shutting down. People are sheltering in place. It's not like anything we've seen in our lifetime.
No. Tom Avatabili, what do you think of this?
Well, obviously I concur. I'm looking right now at New York City, and it's a ghost town. I have a perch, literally a perch, on the other side of the Hudson River. And at this time of day, the FDR Drive would be a parking lot. And there's 1, 2 cars. Yeah.
This is
good.
Everybody's cars is frightening.
This is very scary.
Everybody's doing the thing, you know.
So, Tom, what's your read on all this?
Well, listen, I think the initial messaging that came out from the World Health Organization and from China was totally wrong. I think we lost valuable moments, as you can see in Italy, where they did not respond immediately. We responded. I mean, if you believe that the thing started in December, we shut down travel to China in January, and I think that makes all the difference in terms of the curves that you see where the infectious rate and all that stuff. The other thing about this that's really interesting is, as you know, Wuhan, China, happens to be the home of their bioweapons labs, and the question is, you know, did some insects or a group of insects find their way out of the lab into the bats, and then the local residents having bat tartare as a delicacy? Is that how it happened? And I think when this is all over, Lucy, they got some splaining to do, you know, because
there has been a lot of talk about the fact that this actually came out of their weapons lab and did not mutate naturally.
Yeah, I feel that is the case. Something's too crazy. It's just not kosher. Yes, I believe that's all true. And Tom, I'll throw it out to you, and then Dr. Lopkin. It's all about the 2-week curve. Where do you see ourselves in 2 weeks?
Who's first? Me?
Tom.
Hi. Yeah, this is Tom here. I got to tell you, I think this malaria medicine that we're talking about, I heard about it 5 days ago. The president talked it up yesterday, and today it seems to be even more front page. This malaria medicine, a doctor can explain it better, has a lot of promise. If it's more than just anecdotal, it could change everything, because it takes away, it puts a safety net up. It takes away the sudden death nature of this and puts up a safety net that I think would relax and ease a lot of not only the paranoia, but a lot of the restrictions coming down now from the various state governments. On the other hand, I think that we've always been more cautious than we should be. If you look at the original cruise ship, 700 people, 7 died. That's 1%. In the beginning, we were told that the virus had a death rate of 3.4%. Had that been the case, 22 or 23 people would have died on that boat. Not that that's dispositive all the way, but it's an indicator. Now, 4 weeks later, they come out and say, oh, it's only 1% or 1.2%. The big headline was It's 10% more deadly than the normal flu. Well, the day before, it was 34 times more deadly than the flu, not 10 times. So they don't talk about that. The headline could have been 1/3 less deadly than we thought. Instead, they just said 10 times more deadly than the flu, but didn't tell anybody that the day before was 34 times more deadly. And again, it's conflicting data, and you're coming out of China, which has, I wouldn't trust them as far as I can throw them. Not the communist Chinese, the guys running the country. Chinese people are fine; they're victims like everybody else. But it's the Politburo and those clowns that, try to hold up the banner here that I think have seriously injured the world.
So, Dr. Lopkin, where do you think we are in 2 weeks? That's really the key, in my estimation.
Yeah, Tom's absolutely right on this. In 2 weeks, we should be in a much better spot. But as Tom pointed out, one, the malaria drug showed very promising results in animals. They're just starting testing now. There's also another drug that has already started human trials that is showing promise. So we're already fast-tracking medications to help. And in terms of what Tom said about the death rate, the death rate has been highly exaggerated because the same people that are touting, it's a 3% death rate, are also very quick to point out that we don't know how many people have been infected because we don't have enough testing. Well, the mortality rate is calculated by number of fatalities over number of people infected. The number of people infected is unknown because we haven't completed testing, but it's certainly not going to go down. It's only going to go up, which means the mortality rate is actually a lot less than they're telling us.
Okay, so let's do
That's
the
true.
scenario, Tom. I know there's no scientific method of this. Where do you see this? Let's go end of April, end of May. You first, Tom.
Again, I think that there's a good chance of this thing settling down, both by the malaria drug and by the practices that I see. Again, yesterday at 12 noon, there were 3 people on Madison Avenue, counting me. Everybody's taking this seriously. And unless this thing is transmitted by cell phone, I don't see how this thing is spreading. And I think all the reports we're hearing right now, exactly as the doctor said, we test more, we get a higher infection rate. It does not necessarily mean that more people are catching the disease, just we're finding out who's got it. And they may have it based on casual contact and nobody caring the way we care now. So I think we've arrested transmission if everybody continues to do their thing. And that, I think, has got to, as they've been saying in the classic term, flatten the curve. So you
see the curve flattening?
Yeah, I do.
Tom? Dr. Lopkin,
Okay,
what do you think?
Well, hang on. That's a great point, but we need to take a break here. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
All right, and we're back.
Okay.
We are back. So, so Dr. Lopkin, where do you see this going?
Yeah, I think because people are isolating in place, for the most part, things are going to slow down. I think we're definitely on the right track to flattening the infection curve. People are much more careful. And that's really the key to slowing the spread of this. And that's really all we can do right now. After we slow the spread, what actually happens is in the hands of doctors and scientists, and can they get a vaccine and medication underway?
Yes, I would agree with that. Now,
Doctor,
go ahead. Tom, go ahead.
No, I'm saying that the news today, they're ramping up. If it's the off-the-shelf malaria, the Bayer chemical company, Bayer Esprit company, is supplying it now. They can ramp up. They can change their lines over. So the malaria medicine is proven effective. is not a secret formula. It's been replicated all over the world, and if it has any type of effect, even if it minimizes or puts up that safety net, that's going to have a drastic impact on the economic depression that we're going through right now in terms of our economy and people not working, and the socialization aspect, which, if this thing goes more than 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to start to have psychological issues.
I think you could have a ramp up in things like suicide. You agree, Tom?
Absolutely.
Suicides? Yeah. Suicides, I don't know about suicides, but yeah, possible. I'm just talking about people disconnecting and being depressed, No,
Dr. Lopkin, I really think you could have an uptick in suicides. What do you think?
You certainly can, because the isolation will cause an uptick in depression. And if the depression gets serious enough, it can lead to suicide. So, we talk a lot about social distancing and how important it is to stop the spread of the disease. But man is a social animal. Man needs socialization, for their sanity. So you are going to see a negative psychological effect the longer that social distancing goes on.
I would agree. Now,
right.
Tom, you first, and Dr. Lopkin, where do you see this politically?
I think we crossed the Rubicon on that when the Democratic governors of New York and California joined arms metaphorically with the president. I think the president's indication that he and Schumer, who was the head Democrat there, they had nice conversations about this. I think it's that Ronald Reagan once said, wouldn't it be great if we were attacked by aliens? This way the whole world would come together under a common enemy. We may have found that Reagan-esque common enemy in this bug, this invisible bug, and that may mend a lot of fences or bring people together, and maybe, and I'm not trying to be a Pollyanna, but maybe make people think maybe there's more to be gained by agreement than disagreement right now. The coronavirus could be the end of Trump derangement syndrome.
Could be. Dr. Lopkin, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the end of it. If you go on social media, you can still see Trump derangement syndrome going on. I think, however, the fact that we have a massive bipartisan effort is going to pretty much wipe out any political effect. I think once all this is over, if you were a supporter of Trump, you're still going to be a supporter of Trump. If you were one of these folks doing anything to get him out, you're still going to want him out.
Here's my little viewpoint, gentlemen, and our listeners. I believe that if this does not clear up by August, Trump could be finished. I think you blame the messenger or whatever. If you were a big Trumpite and now you're unemployed and your 401k is cut in half, you got problems. That's our final point of discussion. First Tom, then Dr. Lopkin.
Well, I think, and again, I'm not necessarily a Trumper, but I don't see anyone in the field or anybody on the bench who could re-engineer a recovery. If it lasts till August, September could be the recovery month. And I don't think there's anybody on the bench that's got the ability to engineer a recovery better or even close to what he could do. So that could turn the other way, and people see him as driving the ship and not wanting to take them out. And
okay, Dr. Lopkin,
by that definition, he'll have 3 months to prepare.
Dr. Lopkin?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see is similar to what you saw during George W. Bush's re-election campaign. He had a lot of people against him, but because of what was going on since 9/11, people were hesitant to get rid of him and put new leadership in. I think you're going to see the same thing. Even people that say, well, he didn't do enough. I think if he can engineer a turnaround once this is over, they're going to be hesitant to put Biden in. And I mean, it looks like Biden's going to be the opponent.
Yep.
Because let's face it, Biden has no track record in being able to deal with something like this.
I would agree with Dr. Lopkin. I guess that concludes. And gentlemen, I think a really great edition of our first podcast. And before we let Tom Avitabile go, author of several books, why don't you mention a couple and tell our listeners where they can get a copy?
Well, my the book that really relates to our conversation is The Hammer of God, which I wrote in 2014. It's been picking up sales because in it is a intended biological attack on this country, which is, of course, thwarted by my hero. But the residence, it comes out of China. It is a designed, engineered virus, and it's done during the flu season, so the effects of it are hidden amongst the normal flu, but then it builds up and overloads the system. That's the bad guy's plan. And then there's other elements about the media stoking up panic and how the American public deals with it with comedy, how the American public deals with it by whistling past the graveyard. All those elements are in that book, and they're somewhat prescient to today's
And if our listeners
situation.
would like to get a copy, how can they do that?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the standard places where fine books are sold.
Great. Tom Avitabile, thanks for being a part of our first podcast. And Dr. Lopkin,
My honor.
we'll do it again next week.
We will see you then.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.